was a very finely balanced decision, and my concern was not just about making sure we had the evidence, which we did, but making sure that we also took into account what the complainants wanted, hence why I contacted the inquiry. I don't think it's a decision that I should resign over. It's one that I took very carefully, and with the victims at the heart of that, that's why we talked about the victims' right to review, and I encouraged them to do that. And that's where we are today.
Did you take the advice of your principal legal advisor from within the CPS, Neil Moore? Did you agree with what he told you?
I made my own decision. It was my decision. There were lots of people who...
So you disagreed with him?
I'm not saying that. I'm saying there were lots of people who offered advice.
Did you agree with him or did you disagree?
It doesn't actually matter because it was my decision at the end of the day, and there were lots of things that I took into account. So it was my decision at the end of the day to decide to prosecute, and it's my decision that has been reviewed and now has been overturned.
Well, that's true, but it will matter to some people because they will want to know whether you listen to the principal legal advisor that this organisation employs internally to give you advice on these big cases.
He played no part in the decision making. It was my decision alone.
Did you take advice at that point from independent external counsel?
There had been earlier advice from external counsel, yes.
And did you agree with that advice? Did you go along with that advice or did you disagree with it?
I agreed with part of it around the evidential part. I did not agree with the public interest part.
So it sounds to me as though this was absolutely, as you say, it was your decision. You were advised by your own principal legal advisor internally. You were advised by an independent legal advisor from outside the CPS, and you disagreed with some of what they had to say.
Some of it really doesn't matter because it was my decision and it's my decision that's been reviewed. So the basis on which I did it was looking at the evidence that was before me, looking at all the different factors that you take into account in relation to public interest, which will be things like what did the victims want, what was the likely outcome, what was going to happen at court, the severity of the allegations. And as I've said, I found it a really difficult decision. For me, it was very finely balanced. But I decided not to proceed at that time. That decision has been reviewed and we have now changed that decision, so we are prosecuting.
And what do you think about Ms Saunders and her future? There have been question marks, not just about her judgment as you're making now, not just about her judgment in this case, but also about, in particular, her judgment when it comes to prosecutions of journalists involving payments to public officials.
There are queries about Ms Saunders' judgments and the judgments of the CPS in many areas, not just in the hack inquiry, but in other areas too. And I think that the CPS, although it's difficult in election time, I think post-election this is something which needs to be reviewed. I think David Davis, the other day, made his own statements about his own opinion of the way the CPS operates at the moment. And I think clearly there are problems. Clearly the role of Alison Saunders and the way the CPS is operating needs to be looked at.
OK, thank you very much
As
indeed.
a matter of urgency.
OK, well, thank you, sir, for getting that in. Nadine Dorries there in Bedford.